Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Create, a Minecraft mod of all sorts of different things. I'm going to be breaking this up into lots of different segments, and today we're going to be covering this, the Schematicannon. Now, of course, the Schematicannon is nothing to sneeze at. It, in fact, will duplicate structures relatively with ease over time. Yes, I've got a large post up there for good reason, but you'll find out in a minute here. So what you can do is essentially make a blueprint of a structure or an area that you would like to duplicate, and then the Schematicannon can do so with certain restrictions. Obviously, if you have a chest with items inside, it's not going to reduplicate those, but you will be able to reduplicate most of the other parts of the structure. So you will need a few things in order to make this happen. One, a Schematicannon, but that is more the end game part. You will need a schematic table, as well as, which actually the Schematicannon is a little bit expensive. It does require a block of iron, cauldron and stuff, but it is an auto building machine. You don't have to put it on any kind of platform, but you can always do so just to make it look a little bit cooler. You will need a schematic table, which is relatively cheap. And you will need schematics, which will require some kind of light blue dye and paper, of course, to start making those. Then you'll need to upgrade those to schematic and quill, at least for the beginning part of this. So what do you do with the schematic and quill? This is what I'm going to show you. You will hold on to this, and you'll start seeing this little bounding box spiraling around wherever you aim at. This is basically going to be one corner of your three-dimensional area you want to copy and reproduce. You'll notice that I have two houses that look identical. This is the original. I made it with a Schematicannon over here. And no, it doesn't just pop into the world. It actually has a really cool animation technique. If you wanted, you could do very large structures, as you can see here, and therefore aim at certain areas at the top, allowing you to get a little bit easier access to such things. So let's start with this, though. We currently have a building here. I'm going to start with this corner, and wherever you start, it will include the area that it is doing. I just right-click, and it says first position set. Then as you move around, you'll start dragging the bounding box around, and you can actually just choose up to against something. Or if you want, you can also include it. Now in this case, let's click up against here. And this is just so that I can include the top of the roof that you can see up on top. It may be a little bit more challenging to try and do so, but I don't want this wood in there. And I've actually, if you look at it from the front, it kind of has like this extra block on the side. I don't want that. I mean, maybe I do, but let's say I don't. All you have to do is hit Control and scroll, and you can kind of make it go smaller or bigger as you want on the side that you're facing, with the little slanty lines on it and so on. And if you want, most of the items in the Create mod, especially those around the Schematicannon, will have little informations on them. If you hold Shift, it will tell you all sorts of information on how to progress with these. So if you don't remember, you don't have to constantly keep referring back to videos. But alternately, you can also hit Control, and you can see a little bit more about how to better understand this stuff. Now, I currently have this set up the way I want. So therefore, that's the area I want it to remember. And I'm just going to click right-click, and it says enter a name for the schematic. I'm going to say house number 1. And I've already saved a schematic that is of this, but it's named something else. But we're just going to use this for this reference point. Saved as schematic house number 1.nbt. What you did is you just created a file in your modded Minecraft area or storage area. This is like not in-game, like on your computer is what I'm talking about. You are then going to want to go into your schematic table, and you're going to want to try and choose this. You can see your schematic table right now. It says green wizard tower.nbt. What? When I hover over it, it says house.nbt. If I scroll down with my mouse wheel, you can choose different things. House number 1.nbt, small house, Valen's tower. We've got all sorts of stuff going on in here. You normally, though, put it in here if you haven't had any of these going on. You make sure that it reads at the top what it was that you just labeled, and if not, then you can choose each different one as appropriate, and then you just click, and it will slowly over time turn into that item. You can see here it says house number 1.nbt. So therefore, when I hover this down on the ground, it gives me a bounding box. What we're going to do is we're actually going to have this kind of on the opposite side of this area here. We're going to put this a little bit laid back off the road. and I'm going to want it kind of in between these two. We're going to just right click here. All right, and then it gives you a hologram of the house and what it's going to look like. See, I can just walk right through it. I'm not in creative, though I do have, there we go, cheat mode turned on if I need it. You can, therefore, adjust this. If you look at the bottom here, it says hold left alt to focus. You do that, it then brings up this little menu, shifts the schematic horizontally is what we're currently on, move XZ. And therefore, if I scroll, it will allow me to do more. As you can see, it says scroll to cycle right in the top there. And you can see move Y, shifts the schematic vertically. So if I want, I can just leave it on this one. Let's start with move XZ. Shifts the schematic horizontally, point at the schematic, and control scroll to push it. So by holding the control key, you see the blue lines show up. That means that you are going to be adjusting it. And then if I scroll, I can move it closer and further away. I can just get really crazy and move it all the way back here, but we're going to keep it about there. All right, next we can then move the Y position or the Y axis, which means I can increase or decrease and lower it into the ground, making it a little bit more subterranean if I so desire. We're actually going to end up leaving it where it's at. Next, Alt, and I'm going to scroll down to the next one. Deploy moves the structure to a location. That means if I've already got it here and I don't want it there, I actually want it over here, I could then just right click and it would move the house. So like that, just like that. Yep, but that's not where I want it. I want it right there. So we're going to hit Alt and we're going to cycle to the next one, rotate. Now this is more what I'm looking at. We could feasibly rotate this around. And therefore, as you can see here, it says control, scroll to rotate. Basically, it's control and scrolling for almost everything. And if I scroll enough times, eventually I see the front of the house. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go to the last one, flip. We can flip the schematic along the face you select. Point at the schematic and control scroll to flip it. All right, so let's try this. And it's kind of having a little bit of, you know, like it doesn't flip things. Like if I flip this side, it's basically swapping the right and the left. So if I go over here, it'll swap the back and the front. Oops, let's do this and flip flop, and I can actually go over here and you can see it's on the back. And now it's on the front. There we go, just like that. And then I could have like a little path coming up over here. Pretty darn cool. So once I've got this done, then what? Right click, syncing. Oh boy, what does that mean? That means that you have this where you want it to be, right? If I take this off my hotbar, it disappears. If I put this back on my hotbar, it's still gone, but you have to hold it, and then the hologram is still there. All it does is mean that you are now ready to start producing this. You can see that there's like some interference in the way, some things might be going on. What you're going to want to do is place a chest next to your Schematicannon and have it somewhat nearby. It doesn't have to be directly nearby, but it definitely helps if it's close enough. So the chests, you can have them on multiple sides, will feed materials into the Schematicannon that you might need. Now in this case, I don't know what I need, so I've got a book here. I'm going to put it in the side, and then you can click here, Material as Printer, and it will tell you nothing because I don't have a schematic in place. So let's put this in here. And you'll notice that I have gunpowder in the bottom left as well. This is actually the amount that is used. In totality, I used 1 gunpowder, less than even, to make one of these houses. So just so that you're aware of the cost involved in this. So if I continue on with this though, there's your fuel, you need gunpowder, you put your schematic in that you want to make, and you have some all sorts of options in here. But before we do that, you notice that the book jumped down. Material checklist by Schematicannon. All right, so if I hold on to this, right click, you can see I've got a whole bunch of things that I am going to need to get. Now, thankfully, I've got all these things already, so I'm just going to dump them all out of my inventory. Heck, I think I even put some stuff that I don't want in there. Doesn't matter, it's only going to take the things that it needs to make this build happen. So let's just go back over here. You can see that it has an empty schematic. You get that back. You can then add a feather or a quill, and you can remake another one. But just so that you know, you can stop it, you can play it, and currently it is paused. Reason being is because it wants to know how you exactly want things to be set up. If you look here, it has don't replace solid blocks. Again, holding shift. It will explain a little further. The cannon will never replace any solid blocks in its working area, only non-solid and air. If you go over here, it is currently checkmarked with these two because they are currently highlighted white. replace solid with solid. The cannon will only replace solid blocks in its working area if the schematic contains a solid block at their location. This one here, replace solid with any. The cannon will replace solid blocks in its working area if the schematic contains any block at their location, and so on. You've got plenty more. Replace solid with empty. It will clear out all blocks in its working area, including those replaced by air, and so on. So you can actually do this, replace solid with empty, if you really need to. But otherwise, skip missing blocks. You can do this, but I mean, obviously, you're going to be skipping some things. So if you don't want, let's say in here, part of the schematic, let's actually grab this, was that I grabbed some grass. There's 2 grass in there. I don't care about grass. I don't want to place grass. Give me those back. I can actually tell it to skip missing blocks. Therefore, it will skip those grass blocks. I have everything else in there already. Protect tile entities. The Schematicannon will avoid replacing data holding blocks such as chests. So therefore, you can you probably want to protect your tile entities and so on. But I am digressing. Let's get to the really, really cool part of this, shall we? Let's hit play. And there we go. And it will continue going. Now, if it runs out of stuff, we take all these planks out of here. It's going to need planks here in a moment, and then it's going to stop. And at that point, it's going to tell me it needs more stuff to progress. But in the meantime, it's doing work. And you can see it is building a little house copy going up to this. And in the meantime, I might as well get myself a shovel, because this is just going to, be needed for making a path, because you can't just have this go out to nowhere. You've got to have a path going up to the house. You can see it's good. I mean, I can go into it while it's being built, and it's doing good stuff. And you can see that it stopped. Reason being, I interfered with it, and therefore it was not able to actually do so as we would hope. I took out a bunch of those oak planks. Normally, you would think if it didn't have the material in there, it would stop. But I interfered with it, and therefore it just built the structure as we thought it would be without doing that. So you don't want to really yank stuff out like I just did with that. All right, so here's what I'm going to want to do. I'm going to want to replace this and rebuild it again on top of what it already was. In this case, I don't really care about the missing blocks, because I'm going to put a bunch of oak planks in here, and it's going to talk about others that have an issue. Normally, if it didn't have any blocks, it would end up just stopping and waiting for you. It would actually say it's missing this block. So you can do that one at a time if you so desire, but it is a little bit tedious to do. In this case, we're going to make the house number 1, and then we're going to just make that schematic again. I'm going to hold this out, and I'm going to probably have to go inside and place it down manually. Let's do this, and then I can just change it as before by moving it around with the control key. We're going to move it a little bit closer. That looks about right to me. Everything looks about lined up. Oh, except, again, I'm going to want to flip it on this side. There we go. That's better. So that's what we want. And then I'm going to put this in the Schematicannon, and then we're going to tell it that it needs to do the goods. And there we go. We have ourselves a pleasant little house, just as we had before, like these ones across the way. Pretty darn cool. Now, just to give a very brief example of what it's like to actually, here, let me grab one of these. We can make a new schematic real quick here. I don't want that. Discard. Sneak click. Let's do this and do some grass, right? Grass 1. Save, because I think I've already got one named grass in here. We're going to take the grass out of this. We're going to put the schematic in here to actually print it as grass 1. There we go, so it can make a schematic. Put this in place, and you can see it is grass 1 for the MBT. We hit play. Oh, that's right. I need to actually tell it a place to put it. Let's put it here. And we're going to just say, yes, that works. Syncing. All right, it is now synced. Put it in place, and it is grass 1. We hit play. Ready? And you can see here it says missing block, grass. So it will just pause until you have that. But if you have multiple layers like this, as it will build a layer of a building at a time, and you only put in like 4 oak logs, it'll build the 4 oak logs, and then when it gets to the next layer, it'll say, hey, I need more oak logs. So things you're going to want to be aware of. Make sure that you end up getting your materials list for whatever it is that you're going to be building, whether it be big or small. Yes, you could build something quite this large. But yeah, this is just a very small aspect of the Create mod. I hope that you guys have been enjoying this. I look forward to doing a whole lot more little videos on Create because it's got a ton to offer, especially with the vanilla style automation that you can build, customize, expand, and so on. If you guys have been enjoying this, please be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and as always, be sure to stop by, see us on Twitch most nights around 10 p.m. UK time, and don't be afraid to spread that mischief. See you guys next time.